So here we are at our mostly planted vegetable garden. She's not much to look at right now, but Lord willing, it'll grow and it'll do good for us this year. Just on a optimistic note, we're hoping for better things than the last couple years. But if it doesn't give, then it doesn't give. This is why we can. Home canning spares you some pain when it doesn't go good. So we're going to talk today about how much do you need to plant. Don't let it faze you that it's May. We've planted clean up to July and had a good harvest, depending on what you're planting, of course. But they tell you every 3 weeks to replant beets and carrots and chard and whatever. You can do that. I found it was not effective. But so we'll talk about beans. We actually haven't planted those. People ask us all the time, what do I need to plant in order to sustain myself or whatever. It's really arbitrary as to how much your family uses vegetables and what you plan to can. So this is what we do. This is what we always tell people because that's all we can go by. We're a family of 3. We plant in blocks. So when I say rows, then it's not going to apply to what we've done. And I can just tell you what our maximum yields have been. So these are like, 3-foot blocks by about 50, 60 feet long. All of them the same. So for beans, we haven't planted those yet. We'll wait till June to plant those in the squash. Make sure it's a little warmer. So the amount of seed you need for a 100-foot row is about a pound. We do bush beans. And the yield per 100-foot row, they're saying, is 50 pounds. And the amount that you need per person is 20 to 40 feet per person. So on a good year, on a bean row, we're going to be getting, bean block, I should say, we're going to be getting 150 quarts of green beans, and every other day during harvest, we're harvesting a 5-gallon bucket. I can't tell you how many pounds that is. Probably running on, a pound per jar or so, about 150 pounds or something like that, give or take. So it just always depends on what you're trying to do. So it's really, really arbitrary. And here, of course, we had our Swiss chard in the front. And Swiss chard is kind of like a spinach sort of a thing. Now, they say, we planted a block, a very small block, only about an 8-foot block. And that does this family of 3 just fine. We cook it like spinach, and we don't can it. We don't find that effective. You might as well it's too much work for too little yield, too long a cook time. So we just use it fresh through the winter and whatever. And this 3-foot block by 8 feet does us just fine. But they're saying planting per person should be 10 feet. And of course, they're only doing a row. Yield per 100-foot row would be 50 to 80 pounds using 2 ounces of seed. But that's like I say, that's arbitrary. And up from this, we've got our beets. And this is also dependent on what you're wanting to do. Like I said in our beet video, we're not canning beets this year, so I planted just a small area. Otherwise, I would have planted more. We planted from the end of the chard here, a 3-foot by, 10 feet, and up to the carrots there. So they're saying plants, you need 2 ounces of seed for a 100-foot row. 100-foot row yields 80 pounds, 5 to 10 feet per person. So on beets yield, we'll end up with, I think we canned like 50 quarts on a good year of pickled beets when we're wanting to can. I can't tell you the yield we get out of this because we're just doing it for fresh and we don't really measure it. So carrots, on a good year, we always are planting carrots to can. So we're planting a 3-foot block by 20 feet. And out of this, we can get a yield of 56 quarts, right on down to nothing. It depends on the year. This book that I have, this handy dandy book I have, it's called, it's by Ortho, it's 12-month Harvest, it's an older book. So they're saying 3/4 of an ounce of seed per 100-foot row, yield per 100-foot row, 75 to 125 pounds, or 30 to 50 dozen carrots. Planting per person, 30 to 40 feet. So again, this is arbitrary. Are you wanting to can carrots? Do you want fresh carrots? Or are you wanting to winter them over? Just really depends on what you're trying to do. So bear that in mind when you're asking somebody, how big does my garden need to be? What are they trying to do? It really does make a difference. Now, you'll notice that our repertoire is very limited. We don't have a lot that we're planting of different kinds of things. Don't plant stuff you're not going to use. We've done that. We've planted lots of experimental stuff and lots of stuff that we don't really like and whatever. And it's a waste of garden space. Plant what you'll use. So on the potatoes, they say planting per person 50 to 100 feet. And this again is arbitrary. It depends on what you're trying to do. Are you canning potatoes? Are you trying to make it through the winter? We're trying to make it through the winter. Plants per 100-foot row, 5 to 8 pounds of tubers. Yield per 100-foot row, 60 to 100 pounds. We get around about 100 pounds a row on a good year. We have 7 rows here that go, the 60 feet. And then, of course, we've got all of that over there. So on a good year, we're running 1,800 pounds of potatoes. On a bad year, we're running 300, 700. On a really, really bad year, you're getting seed. This is part of why we plant potatoes, is even if we didn't want to garden that year, which we garden every year, it enables you to keep your seed. Otherwise, you've lost your seed and you're going to have to rebuy, which is expensive, and then you don't know what the quality is and whatever like that. So this is just my take on what you need to grow, what we use to grow for 3 people to make it through. And on the good amounts, like the large amount on the beans of 150 quarts, we're eating those for years. These things last for years. And then on the potatoes, we try to make it through the winter on it. We don't typically. We eat a lot of potatoes. It's our prime starch. We don't eat a lot of other things that are. It's a whole food. So potatoes are a really, really good thing for the homesteader to grow. But this has been garden yield and what you need to plant, or at least what we plant. Interrupted by dogs and a cat in a tree.